This is Paul Leary of the Butthole Surfers, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking Podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Paul Leary of the Butthole Surfers.
Yeah, he's promoting the Matador Records reissue of the first two Butthole Surfers studio albums and one live EP.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic interview, eh?
All right, let's get to it.
Yeah, man. Good night.
Good night.
Paul, welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi, Jeff.
Well, fantastic. We are so excited to have you. We finally have a member of the Butthole Surfers on the podcast after all these episodes. So, welcome.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to be a first.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's get right into it. This past March, Matador Records announced the reissues of Psychic, Powerless, Another Man's Sack, Rembrandt, Pootsie Horse, and the PCPP EP, the live album. Talk a little bit more about having these albums reissued. Can you give us a little more of an insight about it?
Well, somehow we managed to land with a cool label like Matador. I mean, we were putting out our own catalog for a number of years, but we weren't really manning the helm. It was just kind of out there, and then Matador Records came along, and it's like, shoot, had to jump at that opportunity, and now the records are being remastered, and some of them are being remixed, and it's all getting put out better than ever.
Fantastic. When it comes to, I guess, pardon my ignorance, but when it comes to a label coming at a established act like the Butthole Surfers that have been around forever, I guess, what is the process like? Do they come to you and say, hey, we want to reissue your material, or do you guys seek out labels and see who's got the best deal for the band? How does it work out?
I don't really know how that worked out. I got a call from a paralegal and said Matador was interested, and would we be interested? And of course we were. And then the deal was really easy after that. They wanted our back catalog from our independent days before we signed with Capitol Records. And it was ours to give them, and we were glad to do it.
Oh, fantastic!
Nice. Did you guys go back and listen to any of the original masters? Were you part of the remastering, or did you let?
Oh yeah, I was all over that. We had a pretty good sized tape storage vault, and I went through all the tapes and dug out as much as I could that was from the original albums, and where there was multi-tracks available, I did some remixing, and where it was mixtapes available, we did remastering, because a lot of that stuff just sounded like crap. So I was really glad to try to make it sound a little less crap.
Well, I was wondering if you listen to any of it and you go, man, I want to tinker with it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, at first it was hard because I haven't listened to that stuff since it came out, and it was a little bit weird at first. It brought back a lot of weird memories, and then after a while, I started being able to hear the music again, going, that's why we were doing that. It's actually kind of all right. So it was a healing process for me to go through a lot of that old stuff, and I'm still going through old stuff.
Well, fantastic. Having these albums reissued, what are the plans for releasing more material as time goes on here? What can we look at as far as 2025 goes?
Well, let's see. I know Matador's got a few more of the old records coming out, and then at some point this fall we have a live album that was recorded in New York in 1992. It's coming out on Sunset Boulevard Records. And then, I'm just now getting my hands on a 3 2-inch 24-track tapes of a live recording we did in London in 1987 when we had 2 drummers. So I'm super excited to work on that. And then we got a documentary movie coming out in the spring, which super excited about that.
Yeah, I saw a little bit about that. I know they did a little interviewing with Al Jorgensen. And some other artists that you guys have collaborated over the years. When can fans expect that documentary to be released? Any time frame here?
All I've been told is next spring.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. But we got a great team, and so I'm really confident that it's going to be a worthy documentary.
Oh, fantastic! We're excited for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, the band was known a little bit for some of its stage antics. Can you talk a little bit about, the live albums? You talked about the one from '92 that you're working on, or the band's approach to live albums. As far as was there any challenges with recording or anything like that?
Well, the biggest challenge is the fact that we suck. We really do suck. But once we get over that, then it's just a matter of trying to, not emphasize the warts and emphasize the better parts of it. I can't even remember what your question was anymore.
Well, just about the band's approach to live albums. Is that something that was, contractual to the label, or was it, something you guys wanted to do?
Well, we had when we were going through the tape vault that I was talking about, I ran across these giant reels of 2-inch 24-track tape from the New York show in '92. And so I had them transferred to digital and brought them home and listened. And I don't think Matador was interested in the live album, but Tim Devine, who was our old A&R at Capitol Records, he's now with Sunset Boulevard Records, and he was interested. So they're putting out that album, and they're also putting out an album called After the The Last Astronaut. I can't remember what it was called. It was our last album that we recorded for Capitol before they dropped us. The record did not come out, but Hollywood Records picked it up, and they wanted it reworked, and it came out pretty awful. And I'm now remixing the original Capitol version of it, which I'm pretty proud of, and so that's going to be coming out next spring or so.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. Matador Records is a label that is always focusing on artists from the alt and punk genres. How has your experience when working with the label? Has it been pretty positive so far?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, we've had enough major label experience from being on Capitol Records and Hollywood Records that it's like walking on the moon when you're dealing with a label like that. And with Matador, they kind of do the same things, except they get it. They're not a bunch of dweebs. They're actually intelligent people, fans of the music, and they're a lot of fun to deal with. So it's really been awesome.
Fantastic.
I know. I remember the band being on MTV back in the day. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with recording some of the videos for the Butthole Surfers?
There was one that we made. I think it was for the song Pepper with Eric Estrada was in it.
Yes.
And I remember, they had like a shoot set up, and we were in Los Angeles, and they had a dressing room trailer, and I was smoking a cigar on the steps outside the trailer, and all of a sudden this limo pulls up right in front of me. And the window rolls down, and it's Eric Estrada, and he goes, "You like cigars?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he hands me this wad of incredible Cuban cigars of all different shapes and sizes, and just gave them to me. And then he hung out on the set and told, raunchy jokes, and he was a lot of fun to work with.
Oh, fantastic. I wanted to bring this back to the Butthole Surfers, the actual vault of material that hasn't been released to this point. Is there quite a few songs that haven't made it to an album so far? And if so, are there any plans to release maybe a collection of deep cuts from the band?
I'm sure there is. I got a lot on my plate right now. I'm the guy that does all the remixing and all that stuff, and I got a ton of stuff to do. But I keep running across songs that I forgot about and that didn't come out from like way back, including like our very first time in the studio, which was with Spot in Redondo Beach back in 1982.
Wow.
We recently came across that mixtape, and so add that to the arsenal. Oh, I was just going to say, and then I've run across songs on the multi-track tapes from our first two albums, and so there's going to be a collection. I don't know if it's going to end up on a box set or just an album of stuff. I really don't know.
Oh, well,
my goal is to try to make it through this documentary movie. So I'm like remixing songs for the movie, which requires like Dolby Atmos, which is weird stuff, man. It's like, why the hell did they have to come up with that crap?
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about modern technology and recording music, because I'm sure it's changed a lot since your early recordings. Can you talk a little bit about the band's approach to the studio?
We just went into the studio last week, as a matter of fact. We recorded a cover song of Donovan's Atlantis.
Oh, okay.
And the goal there is to have that at the end of the documentary movie, and hopefully a soundtrack album from that. But, we go into the studio, and it's just like anybody else. We record a bunch of stuff, and then I bring it home and plow through it.
Well, this modern age of recording, where we have seen so many artists and bands that are recording their parts at home and emailing and Dropboxing them to one another, and not getting into a proper studio anymore, and they're just kind of cutting and pasting everything together. For you, your experience as being a musician and a producer and so forth, where's your preferences in the now? Do you still prefer getting into a proper studio and band members knocking it out together, or do you like this modern day of cutting and pasting their parts together?
I like both. I mean, there's something to be said about going into a studio where you've got a professional engineer and people around him that are doing stuff for you, so that all you've got to do is play and concentrate on what you're creating. And but it's especially when it gets to like drums. If you're doing a real drum kit, you really need a studio. You can't really do that in the living room very well.
Well said.
But then once you do that, there's no need to keep spending a bunch of money. You can do all kinds of stuff at home, and it won't sound any different.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I mean, as a fan, I always loved hearing the stories about how bands were in the studio, and another band, any band would be in the band room next door, and so you'd hear stories about the interaction, or this guy'd come in and guest on the album. Do you have any stories like that from back in your early days?
When we were recording our very first EP, we had it was just a two-piece band. It was just Giddy and I at that point, and we couldn't talk people into playing drums with us. And every once in a while, somebody would stop what they're doing and play on a song. But we had this song called Hey. And as we were starting to record that, there's a knock on the studio door, and this guy standing there, he goes, "Hi, I'm a drummer from New York. I heard y'all making noise. I was wondering if I could play on a song." And he's like, "Sure, come on in." And he recorded drums on the song Hey that's on our first EP. When he was done, he walked out the door and never saw him again, never even got his name.
That's awesome.
Yeah, those are the stories that you miss out on when you hear about artists, recording everything at home or in their bathroom or in their shower or whatever else. Yeah, I feel like rock and roll's kind of lost a little bit of its edge with so much home technology. Do you agree?
I don't know. I'm embarrassed to say I don't listen to a whole lot of music these days unless I'm working on it. I know that sounds stupid, but I got my fill of that crap. I'm an old man now.
Fair enough. So I'd like to bring it to 1991. Your first solo album, The History of Dogs. Can you talk a little bit about that? Decision to make a solo album.
Well, that was a kind of dark period in my life. We were going through some tough times, as a band, and we weren't making money yet or anything, but we were just starting to sign with Capitol Records, but none of that had come to fruition yet. And I just felt like I needed to make a record, and so I did.
Can you talk a little bit about who else played with you on that? Where did you record all the tracks?
I recorded that at Arlen Studio in Austin, where I did a lot of the recording for the Sublime album, and with engineer Stuart Sullivan. And I just kind of did everything by myself.
I want to bring this back to 2019. The Butthole Surfers released the book titled "What Does Regret Mean?" Can you give our listeners an insight to the creative process of getting this book done?
Man, there's been a couple of books on the Butthole Surfers, and I can't remember which one is which. And I'm also embarrassed to say that I haven't really looked at them.
Paul, you're killing me.
I mean, it's not like I don't remember any of that stuff.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. It's, as far as books being written about the band, how much contribution did you have to give, or did Gibby have to give to get a book written about the band?
I don't think there was any.
Really?
Yeah. I don't. Maybe there was, and I just forgot. But I don't really remember any.
You just deflated me when you just said that. My goodness gracious.
I wish I had a copy of that book in front of me to look at. Maybe it would spring up a memory or something. But come to think of it, we must have participated in some way. I know we get checks for that book.
Fair enough. Jeff, you got the next one?
Well, yeah. I mean, just looking through some of the stuff you did in 1994, you played the solo on Loungefly by Stone Temple Pilots. Can you talk a little bit about your contribution to that song?
It wasn't much of a contribution, but we were on tour with the Stone Temple Pilots, and they were trying to record an album while they were on the road. I guess they were just stopping at studios whenever there was a day off. And there was a day off in Minneapolis, and so they went into Paisley Park and asked me if I'd play guitar part. So I went over there and hung out for a while. Got stoned and saw Prince walking down the hall and played a guitar solo.
That's it, huh?
That's it.
All right. Well, let's talk about. Let's fast forward a little bit. 2021, but you had your second solo album, Born Stupid. Can you talk a little bit about that one? A little bit of a recording style difference between that and your first album, but still another good.
Yeah, it's. When I put out a record, it's pretty much a vanity record, and they're always pretty stupid. And, I was originally kind of hoping for a new Butthole Surfers album, so I'd started writing material. And then when that kind of didn't happen, I just decided to finish the stuff up myself and release it myself, or not myself, but through Shimmy Disc, through my friend Kramer at Shimmy Disc.
Well, back during Trump's first run as the presidency and becoming president, you were quoted by saying it would be a perfect time for the Butthole Surfers to release one more studio album. Unfortunately, a new album never materialized. If Trump gets reelected again, will there be any opportunity for the Butthole Surfers to finally put out that last album during the Trump era? If that happens, if
that happens, I may not be hanging around. I mean, that's just a little too much.
But as far as new material goes, do you and Gibby have any plans in the future of getting a full length or an EP out again here in the next few years?
No, we don't have any plans, but we did have a really good time in the studio last week, so I could see it happening. He lives in Brooklyn, and King and I live in Austin, so there are logistical problems, and and the fact that we're old.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, what's the Austin's always kind of been known for a little bit of a music scene. What's going on in Austin these days? Is there still places for bands to play?
Yeah, I never go to see shows unless it's like friends of mine that it's getting to where I can have trouble walking around these days, so I don't go out very much. But I've never paid attention to the Austin scene since the last 20 or 30 years. But they say it's a music city.
Yeah. As the Butthole Surfers were in their prime back in the 80s and into the 90s, did the band have a certain stronghold in a certain area of I guess maybe of touring the world? Was there a certain area that the fans that you felt that you had a real stronghold in that area where the fandom was at its peak?
Yeah, that would have been like Detroit and Chicago and New York and San Francisco and Seattle. And strangely enough, London.
Very good. Some of our listeners might not realize that you co-produced Sublime's historic self-titled third studio album. As you were in the studio working with the band, did you have any idea as the end product was coming that you were onto something really special that was going to kind of hit like a cult status of sorts?
No, man, that was like trying to herd a bunch of cats into a bag. It was a circus. I mean, I can't describe how chaotic that was. And I think I produced like 11 of the 16 songs in that album. And I recently, stumbled across some old emails that I wrote to the label back at the time. It was like crying for help. They're great guys and a lot of fun, but things tended to get broken when they were around. They set the studio on fire and wrecked the studio truck and wrecked about 3 sets of condos we rented for them, and they were a handful.
Your work as a artist, musician has been well documented with the Butthole Surfers, and also your work as a producer as well. I guess in this portion of your career, where is the priority now? Is it producing, making new music as an artist yourself, songwriter for other artists? I guess where is the priority in your career in the now, I should say?
Well, right now, I have a home studio, and I mostly stick to mixing. I'm trying not to do any production jobs anymore, and I'm trying to not do mixing jobs anymore either. But they happen. But for the most part, it's mixing Butthole Surfer material and tending to old Butthole Surfer business. It's become sort of a full-time job, and I'm hoping I can have that all done within a year and wipe my hands and walk away.
Very good.
Yeah. So no plans to do another solo album?
No.
Okay.
You never know.
Yeah.
You're pretty strong on your no there, though.
Well, then I remembered I've got a few songs in my head, but God, they're just freaking awful. They even make myself cringe.
Fair enough. Outside of the Butthole Surfer music, the merchandising for the Butthole Surfers, everywhere I went back in the day, somebody was wearing a Butthole Surfer shirt. It didn't matter what town or what city I was in. As far as merchandising the band, even though you guys are inactive per se of releasing anything new album wise, how important is it to still keep the Butthole Surfer merchandising still live?
We didn't mess with Butthole Surfer merchandise at all for 30 years. Everything that you could buy was, unofficial, unlicensed. And we just signed with Kung Fu Nation recently. And so we have an official outlet for merchandise now. We have a few T-shirt designs and a hat. And trying to shut down the illegal people. And now we have a new manager by the name of Sean Daly, and he's going to try to work up some new revised merch for us. So hopefully we'll have some exciting merchandise coming out soon.
Yeah, and where did you say that your fans can find official Butthole Surfer merchandise? Is it on an online store? Where can they find it?
I think if you go to Kung Fu Nation, they'll have a page for us. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know exactly how that works, but I know we have some designs and stuff for sale, and it's through Kung Fu, so I think that's how you do it.
Okay, very good.
So under your producer hat, I know you worked with like the Meat Puppets. Can you talk in the Melvins? Can you talk a little bit about your dealing with those two bands?
Yeah, Meat Puppets was a huge inspiration for me to start playing guitar again back in 1981. I heard their really early stuff and thought it was amazing. And they quickly became one of my favorite bands, and then got to meet them in 82 when we were heading out to California, and then, we're friends ever since then. And then to get a chance to produce an album for them was really a dream. They had asked me to put them in touch with John Paul Jones to see if he would produce them, and John Paul Jones turned them down. I can't believe it, because I played at the Meat Puppets for him a lot. And then they said, well, would you do it? And so I was like, sure, hell yeah. That was my first paid job as a producer.
Fantastic. Yeah. As far as the Melvins, what capacity did you work with them?
There was a one-time record lineup of Dale and Buzzo and Pinkus and myself, and we made a silly album. I think it's called... I'm embarrassed. I can't remember what it's called. But I'm officially a Melvins.
Ah, what was it, Jeff? Well, it might have. Was it Hold On It?
Hold It In. That's what it was.
Yeah, sorry.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, I think you were on a few tracks with that one.
Yeah. I think I wrote 3 songs or something.
Well, you alluded to John Paul Jones. I know you were on his 1999 Zuma solo album, the self-titled the opening track. Can you talk a little bit about your workings with John Paul Jones?
Yeah, that was after he'd produced an album for us, and I was out at Willie Nelson's studio producing a band, and John Paul Jones was in town doing something, and he wanted me to play guitar on one of his tracks. And I already had a guitar set up at the studio, so he asked if he could come out, and he did, and he wouldn't even let me listen to the track before I recorded. He just said, put on the guitar, and then I put on the headphones, and I got one take, and that was it.
Well, we're running out of our allotted time for the evening. I got one last question for you, then we'll leave you alone. So I asked this question to a lot of our guests. The mystery of rock and roll is not what it was back in your heyday with the dawning of the internet and all the different social medias that are out there. But for you, the artist, the producer, everything that you've done in the business, what do you prefer? That mystery and mystique rock and roll once had, or do you like this new age of accessibility? Because if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't be doing this with you tonight. So where's your preference?
I kind of like the new way. We spent so many years touring back before cell phones. There was no internet, no cell phones. We had a basket with a bunch of maps in it, and we're always looking for a payphone. And, we didn't even have a manager or any of that stuff. So, I like the new way.
Fantastic. Well, like I said, we're running out of our allotted time. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Gosh, there probably is, but, I'm slow of wit, so I'll probably think of it in about 10 minutes.
Fair enough. Well, this is how things are going to work out. But once yours is ready, Jeff, the editing ninja / wizard, whatever you want to call him, he's going to make us sound like $1 million. Does that sound good?
Good luck making me sound like $1 million. I've heard myself.
Fair enough. Paul, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for talking to me, and I hope it turns out for you.
Oh, it's going to turn out great. And once it's all cleaned up, I will send you the link immediately, and please share it wherever you can.
I certainly will. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good night.
Have a great night.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.